The big story tonight is the crash of Silicon Valley Bank. It's the biggest financial sector collapse since '08. An auction for the bank's remaining assets is reportedly underway right now, with the Fed hoping the move will alleviate a national panic before the markets open tomorrow. They also hope it deters a run on the bank. Axios reports Biden on brink of banking crisis. How bad could it be? Well, billionaire investor Bill Ackman tweeted last night, from a source I trust, Silicon Valley Bank depositors will get around 50% on Monday/Tuesday, and the balance based on the realized value over the next 3 to 6 months. If this proves true, I expect there will be bank runs beginning Monday morning in a large number of non-SIB banks. No company will take even a tiny chance of losing $1 of deposits, as there's no reward for this risk. Absent a system-wide FDIC deposit guarantee, more bank runs begin Monday a.m. Now, a whole lot of officials, including Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, are trying to calm fears today. She points out it's highly unlikely that one regional bank's collapse will spell nationwide catastrophe. Take a listen.
The American banking system is really safe and well capitalized. It's resilient. We want to make sure that the troubles that exist at one bank don't create contagion to others that are sound.
Now, SVB is one of the top 20 commercial banks in the country with over $200 billion in assets. Its current customers include Shopify, Etsy, Fitbit, Roku, and ZipRecruiter. Here's Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy earlier today on Sunday Morning Futures.
I'm hopeful that something can be announced today to move forward. It's something that could be very possible to someone to purchase this bank. I think that would be the best outcome to move forward and cool the markets and let people understand that we can move forward in the right manner. Let the actions of the administration take work here before anybody goes to any positions in their own bank.
All right, well, let's start with this. Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis may be 2024 presidential hopeful, based on his appearance in Iowa on Friday, says that all of this was preventable. We never should have gotten to this moment we're in the first place. Take a listen.
We have such a morass of federal regulations. We have a massive federal bureaucracy, and yet they never seem to be able to be there when we need them to be able to prevent something like this. And so we'll see what they do going into tomorrow. But I think it's just very disappointing. Kind of reminds me of stuff that we saw in the financial crisis. This is supposed to be their job, and they always seem to whiff when it counts.
Kennedy, how could the federal government have prevented this from happening?
Well, it's interesting because what he's saying is there's so much bureaucracy and there was so much legislation after the 2008 financial crisis. They didn't streamline things. They didn't make things more efficient or more understandable. They just added more layers, and that adds more weight to an already overburdened, overregulated system. So it's actually easy for things like this to happen because with that weight, there appear cracks. Now, this is one of those specialized banks, and the banks that have been funding crypto and venture capital, which is what SVB normally does, that is essentially the business that they're in, those are the ones who have seen the most pain from the Fed rate hikes. And so the Fed will raise rates until banks break. So, and that is sort of an axiom, and you are starting to see some real fissures here. So the question is this a unique area where the chief risk officer was more interested in telling their personal narrative about any sexuality and immigration status, as opposed to talking about creating safe spaces for workers at the company? It's like, no, a safe space is a well-run bank where my money isn't going to dissolve if people start to panic. And that's what they're doing. And some of these companies that were funded by venture capital, they could only bank with this bank. So they have no liquidity anywhere else, and they have no protection anywhere else. And so they're the ones who are making a run, trying to get something so they can continue to run their businesses. But also psychologically, this, it's like, you remember what people were doing for toilet paper during the pandemic. That's what we're conditioned to do. That's where we're at as a society. So it's like people will hoard and take whatever they can, especially when it comes to their life savings and the money that they've got before a looming recession.
Well, so fortunately for most of the country, there are other banking options. Is this, Joey, why like Yellen and others are saying most of America is going to be okay? Ordinary working middle-class Americans don't need to worry about this at all?
You know, I know more about probably credit unions than banks. That's the kind of people I come from, and more, a local bank, similar as far as industry goes. The local credit unions and banks will be the only ones that will loan to a certain farmer or a certain small business owner, and that's what we need to protect. Wells Fargo pulled out of the mortgage industry at the end of last year because of where rates were. So it's hard for me to separate what the Biden administration has done with our economy from what's happened with this bank. Now, absolutely, this bank made bad decisions, but essentially what they did is they bought long-term securities, and then they had to sell them with interest rates going up. They had to sell them for a loss. They didn't have the assets to give people their money. Well, why did those rates go up? They went up for a lot of reasons, one of them being we tried to patchwork an economy together during a COVID shutdown that should have never happened. So we have to tie all this together, and that's not to bring in COVID, but it's to say the administration has had their finger on this and seen this coming, is really what I mean to say by that these problems can arise, and a bank like this was obviously more vulnerable to it than most.
Yeah. Raymond, take a listen. I liked what Charlie Gasparino had to say today about most of America, most of the rest of America outside Silicon Valley. Take a quick listen. I'll get your response.
I think this is kind of a one-off. Big banks, I think, are well capitalized. But, listen, if you're in a regional bank, that's another worry tomorrow. Yeah. That there's going to be a lot of people pulling money out of regional banks and putting them into major banks. That could cause runs on these regional banks.
Well, look, I'm thrilled that all my money is at Big Bayou Bank and Trust. That gives me great relief today. But I got those free boudin balls with every account. Look, this is not a moment to panic. I've spoken to a lot of people in the banking industry overnight today. They all claim that this bank, as Kennedy alluded to, they engage not only with risky depositors, but in risky investments. It wasn't just treasuries. There were many risky things they were doing that they shouldn't have been doing, given who they were dealing with, and that many of these depositors were not liquid. This is a problem on both ends of this. So, of course, they were going to collapse. But the Biden administration, the policies, from the infrastructure bill to the COVID relief, trillions of dollars, which juiced inflation and pushed these, not only this bank, probably others, to the brink. But they've now got to relieve these depositors. It's important for the government to step up and say, we're going to take care of this and make sure that these people are whole in whatever fashion. They've got to look at their, liquidity and what these companies are actually capable of. But the government has to come in just to restore quiet and calm. Otherwise, there is going to be a run, and that would be
absolutely right. So First Republic, Signature Bank,
go wrong
PacWest, these smaller banks where the deposits are not FDIC insured. Right. So those non-SIB banks, that's systematically important banks. So that's too big to fail. So Bank of America, Chase, they would get a bailout. These smaller banks, they're not FDIC insured, and it would be bad news for the entire sector if the federal government came in and tried to rescue everybody right now.
Too small to survive. Maybe the new moniker
and it's like,
coming out of this.
We're hearing a lot about Jay Ursapa, who is the chief risk officer for this bank globally and in Europe, and truly was more interested in things like, LGBTQ blogs and safe spaces, and the risk assessment should have been happening the entire time, and not hours before the bank goes under. They give out bonuses to everyone in the company. If I'm an investor, if I'm a depositor there, that is really going to set me off, and there will be blood.
And the real worry is if this happens at small community banks. Well, who banks with small community banks? Community small businesses. And what happens when they can't get their money? They have to sell. And who they sell to? Big box stores, vulture capitalists. And then what do we start to do? When we lose small businesses, we lose culture, which is probably the irony in all of this, because now we have a bank that was trying to fabricate culture instead of, finance. And from it, small towns, every time something like this happens, it's the small businesses, the mom and pop stores that have to sell off or get bought out or become just a real estate asset. And we lose that in our small towns. And that's a part of our culture. So the reason why this matters, that goes beyond just the economy of it, is it goes down to the soul of these towns. And that's why the idea that a run on these small banks is so scary, because at some point we do have GDP. We can survive certain things, but we can't just survive the wiping out of who we are, and that's an attack we're facing on all fronts.
Regional banks potentially taking a hit because Silicon Valley bigwigs
and Wall Street, the markets are going to bear this out tomorrow, unfortunately. Tomorrow's going to be a rough day.
Yeah. All right, well.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.